Credibility, being believed, is the fundamental requirement of effective communication. No matter what the message, and no matter who the audience, information must be believed if it is to be effective. Are there basic building blocks for credible communication? There are, and they are as elemental as earth, water, air, and fire. In fact, the very word fire is an excellent illustration of these elemental communication elements. Look in the dictionary for the word fire, and you'll find several possible meanings. These meanings are the content of our little message, the word itself. These definitions include the heat and light of actual fire, the act of firing a gun, the act of terminating or firing an employee, as Donald Trump and others did on television, the creation of excitement, as in firing up a crowd, and even to harden a ceramic, as a pot is fired in a kiln. These 5 messages are all potentially accurate for this same word. They all represent possible content. Now let's add the human element, and emphasize the word with an exclamation: fire. This simple, powerful change narrows its meaning immediately. This is contact, the way the word is experienced. No longer does it describe hardening a pot, or exciting a crowd, or firing an employee. Its meaning is quickly narrowed to firing a gun, and the heat and light of a real fire. Now let's add a particular environment for this word: a crowded theater. This now is context, the real environment in which our one-word message is delivered. Anyone who hears fire shouted in a crowded theater is not going to think of a cannon. They're going to think of the light and heat of real fire. This is the power of content, contact, and context. Now let's change the order of these elements for the next example: John F. Kennedy's inaugural address. The most famous example of the content of that speech is, "Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country." These words were not said and heard in a vacuum. There was a context. This was a solemn constitutional ritual, delivered on the grandest of stages, in a Cold War world in which Soviet and American intercontinental bombers were constantly aloft, carrying cargoes of nuclear destruction. And as for contact, John Kennedy was a war hero who had served with valor in World War II. He was the second youngest president in U.S. history, with movie star good looks and a distinctive personal style. He wore no hat or overcoat on a frigid winter day in Washington when he spoke these famous words.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Kennedy integrated and desynchronized all the elements of credibility: content, context, and contact, to produce a powerful total message. His content clearly communicated his vision and intentions for his presidency. His statements in the context of the historic occasion in the middle of the Cold War signaled a changing of the guard in American government. His hatless, coatless presence, coupled with his person, fairly screamed youth, vigor, energy, and competence. And his total message credibly communicated that he was the right man at the right time with the right ideas to lead the country. This is what happens when content, context, and contact are integrated and synchronized. Powerful communication, powerful leadership. What happens when these elements are inadequate or out of sync? What otherwise could be a locomotive on track to its destination can become a train wreck, running headlong into reality, leaving audiences in disbelief. Here is the most common problem: a failure of contact or personal style. See if you think the next guy is pleased to be there.
So I'm really pleased to be here today to show you some of the new things we've built into the operating system for new services. And I'm really excited to see so many people here to talk about it, for me to talk to about it today.
We've all seen this before. He may be sincere, but his contact isn't helping. Next, see what happens when content fails, as it so often did with former U.S. Vice President Dan Quayle.
This obscene period in our nation's history. No, not our nation's, but in World War II. I mean, we all lived in this century. I didn't live in this century, but in this century's history.
Forward to tomorrow, or we're going to go past to the back.
Spell that again now. Add one little bit on the end. Think of potato. How's it? So, you write phonetically, but what else? There you go. All right.
By many accounts, Quayle was an intelligent man, but he became a joke because of his failures of content. And now to failures of context. And U.S. President George W. Bush.
Today, since I announced the end of major combat operations in Iraq, we have made progress.
We've made good progress, and we are making steadfast progress.
We're making great progress. We're making progress.
And we're making progress toward that goal.
We're making progress. American and Iraqi forces have made substantial progress. We're making progress toward peace. Iraq has made incredible political progress. We have seen encouraging progress. We're seeing progress on the ground. I'm encouraged by the progress, and we're making progress. There's encouraging progress in Iraq. This is real progress. But I see progress. Initial signs of progress are encouraging. We're beginning to see some signs of progress.
The problem here is that to acknowledge context is to acknowledge failure. But not to do so is to completely invalidate your credibility. The credibility equation is simple. Integrated content, context, and contact equals credibility, which equals effective communication, which equals effective leadership. This is true in government at all levels, in commercial affairs of all sorts, in families of every kind, and in every relationship under the sun. Be credible.